Hello friends, today we are talking about the gene key that just transited through. It was activated November 21st through November 27th, 2024, and it was gene key 34. It is one that I really want to make sure we circle back to because it is it's in my activation sequence and it is my evolution sphere. And so it's a big part of the journey of being a sleeping phoenix is having the 34 activated in some way in your activation sequence. So I wanted to make sure we have a video up about it, and I still feel the energy of it. I found it extremely exciting also to know that I was in London while this gene key was activated. It really assisted in my evolution and my growth. And I'll be reading from the Gene Key Diary or Bible and going deeper into the key, and maybe you can reflect on this past week and notice and see if you had the shadow activated or the gift activated, or if you got to experience the city in some way. Hopefully so. I wanted to start off with saying, though, that this key has the shadow of force, the gift of strength, and the Siddhi of Majesty. And this, being my evolution sphere as well, is a gene key that I've become very intimate with, and I know the shadow extremely well. I will give more language to the shadow as I speak through the book. But I wanted to preface by saying, if this past week you were trying or pushing or forcing something, know that you were swept up in the energy of Gene Key 34. And it's very seductive, Gene Key 34. It's very powerful, it's very potent. It comes off of the sacral, and that is the center, right around the belly button. And it is a power center. If you're familiar with human design, it is where we generate life force energy. So it's undeniable the potency of the gates in the sacral center. So be forgiving of yourself if you were swept up in any of what I'm going to speak about now. I, as a child and as an adolescent and as a woman, I have seen different variations of this force gene key come into play. And my most obvious example recently as a woman was certainly my marriage and the visa immigration paperwork of my past relationship. And while I think at times I was in the strength and the majesty of this gene key, I can see many, many, many times where I had slipped into force and slipped into trying. And I really honor those memories and that energy that I was in, because now I've really come to know what that looks like when I'm trying, when I'm forcing, and when I'm going against the natural flow of what the universe is trying to show me. And it feels extremely heavy and hard when I'm doing that. And I also notice many moments, many, many, many moments when I've been in strength and majesty, purchasing my home, starting my business, opening my office for my business. Those moments required a lot of strength, and they also had within it a lot of flow. Very different and contrasting to the moments, as I've mentioned before, where force was driving it. So with that being said, let's get into how the Gene Key Bible speaks about it, written by Richard Rudd. Shadow, force, the survival of the fittest. Despite our burgeoning intelligence, the 34th shadow still lies within us as the urge to use force to make things happen in life, and it can be highly destructive when influenced by a low frequency vibration. The 34th shadow carries a primal quality about it. It is not even animal, but it is far more ancient. It is simply a pure evolutionary force whose prime directive is survival, and its only prerogative is to maintain life within a particular organism. You would not even call it selfishness. since that implies an awareness that others exist. This shadow creates a kind of intense self-absorption that, when applied to a modern human, leads to brute power without self-awareness. This 34th shadow therefore gives rise to a basic human law. At low frequencies, all human beings are destructive to the collective. The nature of modern society means that DNA, when behaving according to these archaic rules, inevitably destroys itself. In terms of modern human beings and their behavior, the 34th shadow can be best understood through the notion of trying. Trying implies forcing something to go a certain way when it won't go there easily on its own. Each time someone is caught in the space of trying to make something happen against the flow, they are under the influence of this shadow frequency. Such people seem unable to stop moving in their direction in which they have set out, and any attempt to help or guidance from the outside falls on deaf ears. As an aspect of the codon ring of destiny, the 34th shadow is linked chemically with the 43rd shadow of deafness. Under the influence of this shadow, you become totally lost to the force that is moving through you, even though it may be harmful to you or others. When operating at a low frequency, this 34th archetype is unavailable to outside influence. Consequently, you can see how, at its extremes, this energy can even give rise to the most horrendous subhuman acts. If you have this 34th gene key as a major aspect of your hologenetic profile, you will tend to be confronted by its shadow aspect through the responses of others. This shadow tends to infuriate other people who, since they cannot understand how you could be so blind to outside influence, it often seems to others as though you are behaving in an inhumane or foolish manner. This frequently results in some kind of challenge or complaint from the other person, which may take you by surprise. If you cannot maintain your frequency at a certain level, this kind of interference from others can create unwanted, volatile situations in your life. If you are trying or forcing something, you will continually meet resistance from others. The 34th gene key is unaware of itself even at the highest levels, so it is not a matter of changing yourself. It's simply about doing the right activity at the right time. Inexhaustible reserve of inner strength. That is the 34th. Finally, force is always rooted in the mind, whereas power comes from the belly. Power is natural, grounded, and universally connected to all life, flowing as it does from the great umbilical center within your body. Force happens when you forget to trust in this center of pure awareness. And the shadow manifests in a repressive and a reactive nature as always. The repressive nature is self-effacing, hides from its own power, and the reactive nature is bullish. This is the angry side, which is a bossy nature. Now let's move to the gift, strength. The 34th gift employs the same terrific primal vitality, but unlike the shadow, it does so through appropriate activities and correct timing. That is so key. The result is a creative manifestation of aligned life force that always catches the attention and praise of others. Individual strength is something absolutely natural to all human beings. Obviously, we are not talking about physical strength here, although people with this gift often can be physically strong. We are talking about the ability to act in harmony with natural forces. The real differentiation of strength. When applied to physical activity, which is what the 34th gift is all about, strength has no element of trying or forcefulness in it. It simply flows out of you and you become effortlessly at one with the activity. Effortlessness in this context does not mean that there is no exertion. There may be great exertion, but there is no resistance. This fluid efficiency is one of the main hallmarks of the 34th gift. And finally, on the gift. The 34th is the gift of heroes and heroines. It is one of the greatest and oldest of human archetypes. True heroism occurs without awareness and is a wholly individual act. This is why every human being alive feels deep resonance to the heroes of myth or the heroes of contemporary culture. Her heroism denotes strength. Ironically, though, true strength is quite unaware of itself. Many people who have committed incredible acts of bravery have afterwards described the experience as devoid of any intention on their part. This kind of heroism is entirely accidental, unlike the highest frequency of the 21st Siddhi, which is valor, an entirely different archetype. Often heroes feel uncomfortable about being praised because it seems to them that the whole thing was out of their hands. However, even if it is accidental, the heroic act is never interpreted as such by others. It is usually set upon a pedestal and glorified. Now, finally, the Siddhi of Majesty. As mentioned in the 34th gene key, has an unusual attribute that remains at all levels of the frequency, that of being unaware. Force is unaware of itself and leads to destruction. Strength is unaware of itself and leads to admiration. Here at its peak, the Siddhi of Majesty blossoms. This is the majesty of the human form in motion, and the form itself is pure awareness, which is why it cannot be awareness of something. It is quite simply reveals the true beauty of consciousness in form. Majesty is not really a state of being. It is the truth of all nature in motion. At the Siddhic level of being, everything alive displays majesty. Even the struggles of the low frequencies are revealed as majestic in their own distorted ways. But this 34th Siddhi in actuality concerns humanity more than any other aspect in human DNA. It is the Siddhi of the naked ape, of Adam and Eve, of the divine energy that constantly moves through the human form. It is through the 34th Siddhi that we get the idea of man as God. This notion has been immortalized in our myths in which the gods appear on earth and take on physical shapes, or through man's attempt to convey divine authority on certain chosen people throughout history. The great paradox is that if God were to assume the shape of humans, they would never know they were gods. This is the true meaning of the 34th Siddhi. The divine essence of creation can only move freely through the body when the identity has ceased to exist. Such people move in a way that is bewitching to the eye. Out of this Siddhi have arisen the physical people move in a way that is bewitching to Out of the Siddhi have arisen the physical practices that aim at higher consciousness. For example, the mudras and asanas of yoga or the movements of Tai Chi, all of which are spontaneous expressions of divinity moving through the form of someone in whom the 34th Siddhi once dawned. A beautiful, beautiful, beautiful gene key, and it's a privilege and an honor and a mystery and a dance to hold this gene key in my profile the way that I do, and the way that many do. Many have this gene key activated in some way in their profile, and it certainly has been my greatest evolution to understand the spectrum of this gene key, and it makes me emotional thinking about the times where I've been so unawaringly forcing instances in my life and how much suffering that has created. And it's almost like when the deafness has a moment of clarity and hearing, I get to see the rubble of the destruction that I've created through my force. And it is just a pattern playing out. All I can do is try to move forward in a higher expression in my strength, noticing timing, noticing flow, and honoring that. And noticing as well what it feels like through my experience when I meet resistance and life is telling me to pivot, to ease on the gas pedal, to bring in the brakes and shift into strength, which strength sometimes says, let me be present, let me notice what is going on here, and let me adjust my actions as needed in order to stay in flow with the universe and not to force my own agenda with deafness and almost ignorance or naivete. So, interesting gene key. I'm a big fan of it. And if you have this gene key somewhere in your profile, I would also suggest strengthening your body is a very helpful way to begin to work with this energy and understand its gift and purity. And it has certainly been something that's been a theme throughout my entire life, is cultivating that strength in my physical vessel. That mental strength as well is very helpful. Giving myself commitments and then challenging myself to follow through with them, using that stamina and strength in a productive, healthy way has always helped me stay out of the shadow more often than not. So I love you all. I hope this supports you in some way, and I hope you get to reflect back on the past week and see if this transit brought anything up for you in the spectrum of force, strength, or majesty. I'll see you soon.